Everyone, it's Fred again. Notes of the Nomad, video number 235. Today, I want to share with you the roads that I've taken, different types of roads, and where I've been in the past week since I returned from the Arctic. I was in Whitehorse, and I'll show you on a map where I have been traveling since I left Whitehorse. So this is Whitehorse, the capital of the Yukon. And I then traveled along the Alaska Highway for a short distance and then took this paved road down to Atlin, where Atlin Lake was. And stayed in the cottage for a few nights and then back up to Alaska Highway, traveled a distance and decided, I know what the Alaska Highway is like. I'll try this road. Highway 6 was about 200 kilometers up to Highway 4. This road took me, I averaged 40 kilometers an hour, took me over 5 hours to travel this 200 kilometers. Saw hardly anyone on that road. And then on Highway 6, it was a similar gravel road to the Dempster Highway, a lot of dust, but not as many potholes and or mud as we had. So it was a pretty good road. I did about 80 kilometers an hour in average on that road compared to 40 kilometers on Highway 6. Then back onto the Alaska Highway and went down to Beard River, where I enjoyed the hot springs, something I had visited in 1985, 39 years ago. It's changed a little bit, but still very enjoyable. Sat in the hot springs for a couple hours and chatted to people there, and then traveled down to um, on the Alaska Highway from Port Nelson. There's a lot of oil and gas, very, very busy road, lots of traffic on the road because of the activity. The tourists traveling from, well, particularly United States going up to Alaska on the Alaska Highway, but also a lot of vehicles because of the oil and gas business. I left the Alaska Highway and went on a side route. Alaska Highway ends here in Dawson Creek. That's probably Highway mile 0 on the Alaska Highway. Went down, and this was where there's a lot of dams for hydroelectric. In fact, there's a big site C, which is called, I'll mention that a bit later on. And then into where I've been previously in my previous travels into Fort Prince, sorry, in Prince route, Prince George, sorry. And then from there, traveled down to Williams Lake, and then along this interesting Highway 20, where there's a very fascinating road to Bella Coola, where I am now. I'm in a cafe with internet, so you'll hear some background noises from the cafe. But fortunately, it's one of the few places that have internet, and they've allowed me to use their internet to do this video before I leave on my travels. So you'll hear people talking in the background as well. So that's where I've been in some of the roads. I'll show you some of the pictures. This was a picture of a paddle wheeler steamboat from the early days. One of them still alive. We're still around. It's being renovated, so I couldn't get close to it, but it's called the Klondike, and this is uh, in the capital of the Yukon, Whitehorse. So I took that picture before I left Whitehorse and then traveled down to the cottage on the nice paved road. I didn't know what to expect. And as it's entering, you can see Atlin Lake. And there was a picture of the cottage that John and Beverly have. People I stayed with in Whitehorse said, hey, I could stay in the cottage, which I did for a couple of nights. And inside it was very well equipped. There you'll see a nice wooden stove to heat in cold weather. And also another stove, but this is more of a decoration. It reminds me of the stove that was in the house when I was young in Port Arthur or Thunder Bay. And that was a stove that we used to cook on, and it heated the house before my father ultimately put in a furnace. So that was a great reminder of what stoves looked like in houses many decades ago. And also the kitchen, very well equipped, and the deck overlooking, you could see Atlas Lake and Atlin Lake, sorry, in the distance. That one item is, I must mention, it's the outhouse. Out Art Deco outhouse, and inside it has a lot of decorations. This is the toilet seat where you do your business. This is the toilet paper container, and you see it's very, very well decorated. And while you're doing your business, you will have a lot of faces looking, staring at you. But I've never seen an outhouse so well decorated. Uh, this is a picture of Atlin Lake. And in the winter, there's a lot of winter sports and summer sports. So it's known as the Switzerland of North America. Beautiful spot. And then I traveled up back to, as I showed on the map, to the Alaska Highway, Highway 6 up to Highway 4. This is the road that took me more than 5 hours to do 200 kilometers on this road. And I said I saw very few people on there. I saw 4 people on quads, which are the 4-wheel outdoor vehicles. And I only saw, I think, 3 other vehicles, pickup trucks and an RV. And that was it. In 200 kilometers, I saw more quads than I saw vehicles. Not a very well-traveled road, but it was an interesting road. You'll see it's very narrow, and it was full of, anyway, potholes, etc. So that's why I was doing 40 kilometers an hour. As I said, it took me over 5.5 hours to do 200 kilometers. And then I got onto the other road, Highway 4, which took me back to Alaska Highway. I was able to do 80 kilometers an hour. And if you look at the back window here, you'll see dust. So it was a very dusty road, but it was similar to the Dempster Highway, but less potholes, but dust, and it was a well-maintained gravel road. And then on to the Alaska Highway, which is totally different. This is pristine highway. It's a 2-lane highway, very well marked. And it's almost like it's landscape. You'll see the trees are cut away from the highway. They're not as close as you saw the previous picture of Highway 6. You were, almost sometimes the branches of some of the shrubs were hitting the car. It was so narrow. In this case, it's totally different. And this is the Alaska Highway, very well maintained, very well looked after. And even, as I say, almost like landscape. Often you'd see flowering plants. Not that they had planted them, but I'm sure they're indigenous plants. But what a different highway, but very, very busy. Lots of traffic on this highway. And trucks, there's a lot of businesses, a lot of big rig trucks, a lot of people traveling up from the United States on their way to Alaska. So this highway is totally different to any others that I was traveling on. When I was stopped by some bison on the road, so I had to wait for them to move off the road. Saw another group of bison as well as I was traveling down the Alaska Highway. And I stopped at this place called Cold River. And Cold River, I put some gas in, and I noticed that my headlamp burnt out. So I was looking and checking that, and I ended up chatting to a fella by the name of Tyler, who was from Arizona. He's 22 years old, and he seems to be hanging around in the north, likes the outdoors, and he was helping out at the gas station slash restaurant. And there was a sign here, I don't know if we can see it, but it says bison burgers in the cafe. So I don't think the bison meat comes from these bison here, but they were serving bison burgers inside that cafe. And also, I then went to Liard River Hot Springs. Liard River was a place I had fond memories of in 1985 when I traveled up the Alaska Highway and stopped there. Now, it wasn't as well developed. It's still a provincial park, still in natural state, but I remember the trees on both sides. I stayed in this particular area. I think that if you go further down, this was where it was hotter. As it shows here, it goes up to about 36 degrees as it's centigrade as the water's coming up. And I chatted to a couple people. There was a fellow from Holland and another fellow and his family from Ottawa who had traveled, traveling around Canada, which I believe particularly the West Coast is one of the most beautiful spots in the world. And this was a very relaxing place to spend a couple hours in the water and chat to people. So that's what I did at the River Hot Springs. You take a boardwalk from the highway, just near the highway, into the near the river, and there was a picture of me getting out of the water after having chatted to people and spending probably close to a couple hours, and it was very refreshing. And there's a picture of where the change rooms are and the big deck, and people can enter from there into the Liard River. It has changed a lot. I had fond memories of it. It wasn't as developed. And I remember the trees on both sides and the hot waters brought back great memories. Also saw some mountain goats on the side of the road as I was traveling down the Alaska Highway. And one of the beautiful lakes was this 12-kilometer long Munch lake. And it's very beautiful color as well. So there's a picture of Muncho Lake of the Alaska Highway. Now, Alaska Highway is very busy, and from Fort Nelson, if you look on the map down, is oil and gas development. So there's a lot of trucks involved with that, a lot of pickup trucks, a lot of trailers where people living, working in the oil and gas fields. So another unique part about the Alaska Highway are these emergency 911. You can press the button down at the bottom here. And if there's an emergency you want to report, in this, you can see the two buttons, 911, and you can then have a place a call and talk about what your emergency is. Never seen this anywhere else except on the Alaska Highway. It may be elsewhere, but it's the only place. Every so many, maybe 50 or 60 kilometers, you'll find one of these emergency areas. Now, when I left the Alaska Highway, I mentioned I was on another highway, I think it was 29, if I recall. And this one is talking about one of the dams that was being built. Site C is being built by British Columbia Hydro, and they're starting to fill the reservoir this year. And then, as it says, over a period of 4 months, water levels will rise up to 3 meters a day. And once it's completed, it'll have an 83-kilometer section of the Peace River. Will be 2 to 3 times its normal width, with a reservoir up to 52 meters deep near the dam and 18 meters near the Hudson's Hope, which is one of the towns on the highway that was. So there was a lot of activity in this particular highway as well. During there were a lot of trucks traveling up and down the highway, and there was some steep hills. So it was quite interesting to see the activity in northern British Columbia, oil and gas, and the dams activities, the hydroelectric dams. From Prince George, I then traveled back down to Highway 97, and there was a good notation here about paddle wheels. I showed you the picture of the Klondike in the Yukon. We travel on the Yukon River, but here on the Fraser River, there was a lot of paddle wheels as well, how they used to travel before even the railway ultimately came. Now, I stayed at a rest stop, and I was surprised when I left Williams Lake. I took Highway 20 into Bella Coola. This is a very unique road. And there was electric vehicle chargers on the rest stops. Not all of them, but I saw a few. So I didn't see any electric vehicles, but I saw charging. And you can see the lookout in the rest area, the type of, in the Chilcotin it's called, and I'll go through where the Chilcotin is. And there's some of the mountains in the distance as you're getting near to the coastal part. And you then go down Heckman Pass, which is 43 kilometers of dirt road, and 9 kilometers of that is about 18 degrees gradient. So it's a very steep road. I'll show you pictures that I found on the internet because I couldn't have taken this picture, but it shows you the type of road that you're going down. Sometimes 18 degrees, a lot of switchbacks. And so that Heckman Pass is quite an interesting road to drive I'm going to later today go up that road. It takes about an hour and a half of this type of road, up and down switchbacks, and very narrow in some cases. So that's the interesting part of the road to Bella Coola. When I was in Bella Coola, I visited the museum, saw a lot of the history, found when the white man arrived, and lots of history about the fishing, etc., in the museum, and also some of the mining, and Norwegians live in the area as well. They moved from Minnesota uh, a long time ago, and now they have a community which is near Bella Coola, where Norwegian settlers settled many, many years ago. So the museum was very informative, and this is a plaque on one of the big large rocks in the harbor, in the marina, where Alexander Mackenzie was the explorer, who in the 19th of July in 1793. Now, I was born on the 19th of July, but 1942. So 100 and about 49 years later, I was born. But Alexander Mackenzie was an explorer, very famous. They have a river called the Mackenzie River in Canada. And he was here about 3 weeks after Captain Vancouver, the British sailor, Vancouver Island, Vancouver is named after. He was here as well 3 weeks before Alexander Mackenzie came across by canoe. I mean, there's no roads. He didn't walk. He came by canoe right across from, well, originally from Canada, but from Fort Chippewa. So this is a fascinating part of the history. I thought I would show you what Charlie looked like in the front from, and those are bugs, or were bugs. That's not dirt. There's, I don't know, squash bugs on the front of Charlie from traveling. And I just want to mention pickup trucks. Pickup trucks is the vehicle of choice everywhere. This was just parked at the marina at Bella Coola, and there was the ferry. The ferry travels regularly, the Northern Seawall, where people, I think the big business is once they come down that Hickman Pass, they say, well, I don't want to drive back up that because it takes about an hour and a half going up the hills and the curves. There's a way out. You can take a ferry down to Vancouver Island. I think it's about an 11-hour trip on the ferry, maybe more, I'm not sure. But every so many days, the Northern Seawolf comes, and it was here just the other day. So that is where I was and I am at the moment. I might want to show you my shirt because it mentions Caribou Chilcotin. And this was the Caribou. This is the highway Chilcotin. This is the coastal Tweedsmuir. This is where this part here is where the road is, the Hickman Pass, which takes about an hour and a half driving, and I should be doing that later today. So with that, I'll show you my shirt. This was from Caribou Chilcotin wildfires. I came up here in 2017 to help some of the evacuees. I have this shirt. The shirt's getting old now because I bought it in 2017, but now I know more about the Caribou and Chilcotin area than I did even when I was at 100 Mile House. But I saw a lot of the evacuees because of the forest fires in 2017. So with that, I'll say adios, au revoir, wishing you, your family and friends lots of love and laughter. Until next time, bye for now from Fred and Notes of a Nomad.